is Night Teeter, and today I will be teaching you how to multiply matrices. Real quick though, before we start, I'm going to say a couple quick things just as overview. First, ordering is important in terms of the letters in the question. If it asks for AB, you will get a different answer than if it was asking for BA. So be careful with that, make sure you're paying attention. And second, you are going to be multiplying the rows of the first letter by the columns of the second letter. And I'll tell you specifically, or I'll show you specifically what I mean by that when we get into it, but just for now, know you need to multiply the rows for the first letter, columns for the second letter. And with that, let's get into multiplying this first question, these first matrices. So, what we're going to do is multiply the row in A, this first row, the 1 and the 4, by the first column of B. So what that's going to look like is 1 times 4, right? 1 times 4 is 4, simple. And then what I multiplied was this top left number by this top left number. Now we're going to multiply the second number in the row by the second number in the column. So 4 times 4, that's 16, and we're going to add those two together. Next, we're going to stick with this first row because there's two columns here, so we've got to do two things with this first row. And so we go 1 times negative 3. Well, 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. And we go 4 times 9. 4 times 9 is 36. Okay. And that is all the numbers in the first row. So we're done with this first row here. Now we move on to the second row, and we go back to that first column because we've got to multiply all the numbers. So 2 times 4, because this 2 right here times this 4 right here, first number of the second row times the first number in our first column, gives us 8. And we have to add our 6, the second letter and number in the row, and the second number in the column, our 4, we multiply and we get 6 times 4 is 24. And then we stick with this second row, right, because we've only done one thing with it, and we got to go to this second column. We go 2 times negative 3 gives us minus 6, and then we have 6 times 9, and that gives us 54. So now we have a whole bunch of numbers, but what do these really mean? Well, now we have to combine them. So 4 plus 16, 20. 8 plus, I'll go in the same order I did before. Negative 3 plus 36, 33. 8 plus 24, 32. Minus 6 plus 54, 48. And that is AB. So what you did, you just multiplied the rows by the columns, right? And you start with the rows, you do the top row and you do both columns, then you go to the second row and you do both columns and add them up, and you should get this. Now, this was a fairly simple problem. Next, let's move on to working on a little bit more of a challenging problem, see what something else might look like that isn't just a 2 by 2 times a 2 by 2. Now, over here, we have something a little more complicated, but you do the same thing, it just takes a little bit longer. So we again are going to start with this first row of minus 4 and 1. Actually, we're not, because as I said before, DC, the ordering of the letters is important. I almost messed myself up right there. We start with D, we do not start with C, so we start with the first row of D and the first column of C. D will be our rows, C will be our columns, because D is first in this question up here, C is second. I almost messed myself up there, but I'm glad I caught it. So, like I said, we're starting with the rows in D, so 2 is our first letter, or first number in our first row. and we're multiplying it by -4. So 2 times -4 is -8. And then we go to our second number, just like we did before, and our second number here, 3 times 7 is 21. And then we have to do the same thing again, but now we have a third number. So that's the only difference here. We just have a third number we need to include into our little addition combination problem up here. We have our 6 and we have it multiplied by 2, so we add 12, and that is our first number up in the top left, and we just have to do that for all of the remaining numbers. And just know the top one's C, the bottom one's T. I'm just cutting them off because I need some more room. Now, we are still on this first row. We still have to work with this first row. We just have to move to the second column now. So we go with 2 times 1. 2 times 1 is 2. Next, we go to the second number, and our second number, 3 times 3, simple, 9. And then move on to our third number for each, 6 and 7. Multiply those, you get 42. And that is our first row done. So because we have this first row done, I know I can box this off because we won't have to add any numbers past it. Next, we move on to our second row. Now, this second row right here, we have to move back to the first column. So just because we're in the second row doesn't mean anything. We got to restart back at this first column. We go 1 times -4. We get -4. And then we go 4 times 7, right? That's 28. And then we go -4 times 2. It's -8. And then same thing on this second column. I'm going to start speeding it up a little bit. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 3 is 12. And -4 times 7 is -28. Now, third row down here, back to our first column. -4 times -5 is 20. 2 times 7 is 14. -1 times -2 is -2. And last row, second column, we have -5 times 1 is -5. We have 2 times 3 is 6. And we have 7 and -1, which is -7. Now, what you have to do is you have to add up everything. So we should get 25 up there, 53 here. We should get 16 here, -15 here, and then last but not least 32 here, and that looks like -6. Box it off, or close the matrix, and we get DC is equal to this, because remember, we started with DC, that was what it was looking for, so we had our D rows and our C columns. This is your final answer for DC. Thank you for listening, and hopefully you could take something away from that.